All right, so today I want to talk about using SolidJS with the ArcGIS API for JavaScript. Now, I haven't really talked too much about SolidJS before. I've been playing around with it for a while. Version 1.0 came out last year, I believe, sometime. But it's been in development for a few years now. But it really kind of solidified, like I said, just about last year or so with the 1.0 release. And it's pretty cool. I like it. And there's a lot I like about SolidJS. So you can go here. The docs are really good. I'm a big fan of their documentation, right? The website's super simple. It's not overcomplicated at all. They have a really good guide section here. So guides, right? So they have a getting started, reactivity, which is big in SolidJS, rendering, server-side rendering. They do have a TypeScript template that you can use. Talk about testing. They have comparisons against other frameworks if that's the kind of thing you want to get into. It is a JSX based framework, right? So it looks a lot like React. So if we come over to like the getting started, they got information here on how to go ahead and install it, which we'll cover in a second. But they have all this really cool stuff for reactivity stuff. And it looks a lot like hooks in a lot of ways, but they call them signals, right? So you have like, you create a signal with a string, and you have a array that you can destructure, and you get the value, and you get a function to update that value, which we've seen with hooks and stuff nicely. The way they handle it, I think, is a little bit nicer though. So if we come over to the doc in here, they have some pretty cool things that I just want to point out that I like quite a bit, right? So they have this control flow helpers, utilities that you can use. Something like for helpers, so it's a way to be able to iterate over a list, something iterable, right? And then do something with it. This reminds me an awful lot like kind of the way you can do stuff in Vue or Ember with handlebars. You can do a lot of stuff like that. Really useful, right? And they have this. This one's kind of neat. The show. So this is going to contain elements that only get shown when you have a truthy statement in here, right? And all of these have this fallback, so you can have kind of a loading message, or maybe a different component that you want to be the default somehow, maybe like a dynamic, like I don't know, placeholder images, maybe something like that. They've got the error boundary, which is really kind of nice. So if something in that component happens to break, you can have a fallback to show for it. That way your app just doesn't fall apart. They have suspense, right? So they have suspense, and they have suspense list. Suspense list is still under experimental in SolidJS, but this async loading of components, if you're familiar with this kind of work inside of React and stuff. But they do have some pretty cool things here. I really like the reactive utilities here, right? So you've got the observable, which is pretty nice. You can you got create signal, which where is my create? Here we go. Create signals, create effect, and then create resource, which is also really nice. I kind of like this create resource quite a bit. There's a lot in SolidJS, like I said, that I've seen other frameworks do, like Ember, Vue, Modern Dojo, which is really nice, and kind of wrap it up in this familiar JSX syntax, right? So let's go ahead and get started and install it. And we'll go ahead and use the JavaScript API to do some stuff too. So let's go ahead and use dget here. I'm just going to use the JavaScript template. That way we don't have to worry about TypeScript stuff and setting up typings or anything like that. It's not really necessary in this case. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and do npm install. Awesome. And, like the instructions said, let's come over here and do an npm run dev just to see what the default application is going to look like. And there we go. This is your default application running inside of SolidJS. All right, let's dig in a little bit more. All right, so let's go ahead and install ArcGIS Core. So let's install the latest, and then we're going to start making some updates to this particular application. All right, awesome. First thing we want to do is we want to come into this index CSS file in here, and I'm just going to delete everything there. I have some CSS already prepared here. CSS isn't, I don't think anyone's going to give me a hard time for copy pasting my CSS here. I'm just going to go ahead and import the JavaScript API here. Let me give myself a little more room here. So yeah, so I'm importing the CSS from the JavaScript API. I have some CSS for my root here, and then just the body font stuff. No big deal. All right. Let's go ahead and look at some other stuff now. So I just want to go and show what like the index.jsx file is going to look like, right? So we bring in this render method from SolidJS web. We're importing the CSS directly, and we're going to import the app component. And then this is going to look pretty familiar. I think just about almost all frameworks have a way to a render method of some sort, or rendering to the DOM in some way. You just need to anchor it to something, right? So we're going to anchor it to this root element. But most of the work is going to happen inside of the app.jsx file. So this is going to look very familiar. Standard style JSX. We're going to have a function. We're going to export that function. Then we're just going to define some of our DOM elements inside here using JSX. Notice that in this particular case, I can just use class for style names, and I don't have to have class name, which is kind of nice. Also kind of nice is the fact that it's going to be using CSS modules by default, and it's going to recognize that I'm using CSS modules. And this is just, I think, the way the the template is set up to do it this way. But CSS modules is a really nice kind of way that you can use CSS, that we don't get any conflicts and stuff inside your application. I'm a fan of it. I like it, and I like the way they do it. They have somewhere, well, we're not using TypeScript, but somewhere they have a way to set this up so that the CSS is just typed as any, so you don't have to have individual typings files for your CSS, although that would be kind of nice, and I guess you could still do that if you wanted to, but you don't have to. Dojo does that. I kind of like that, so I have strongly typed CSS, but that might be going a little bit overboard with TypeScript if that's your thing. It's my thing, but whatever. We're not doing TypeScript today. Sorry, went off on a little tangent there. Okay, so let's before I dive into that, let's go ahead and let's update the CSS for the application here. So I don't need any of this nonsense here, so I'm going to go and create the CSS for a map div here, and this could be where the map is going to be. Give it a padding of 0, give it a margin 0, give it a height of 100%, and give it a width 100%. Awesome. Okay, so now we can go start playing with the JSX file in the app over here. We do not need the logo, so we'll fix that up right now. So I do want to bring in, a small helper from SolidJS that's going to let me go ahead and grab the DOM right when this component is mounted. So they do provide a very familiar mount helper for this. 1 second. Oh, if I could type. Once again, one of these days, I will get through a video that I type perfectly. So we want to bring in the onMount helper, right? It's a nice utility that we could use to do stuff when this particular component is mounted. All right, so I'm going to, we're going to delete all this. All right. Oh man, it's errors galore, right? Okay, so for me, what I'm going to do, let's bring in a scene, right? So we're going to import a scene view from ArcGIS Core Views Scene View. Then we're going to import a web scene from ArcGIS core web scene. Okay, awesome. Yes, I know, declared but never used. I've got TS server set up in my Vim, so it just kind of checks all my JavaScript as well. I get that nice IntelliSense everywhere. But yeah, it's kind of throwing up at me here. So what I want to do is I want to return a div, right? And that div is going to hold my map. So the class, let's do this first, is going to be equal to the styles.map div. That was the style that we're going to provide to this. And then we want to go ahead and I want to do this other bit here. So I need to have a reference to this DOM element after it gets rendered and stuff. And let me do a little bit of a cleanup here. Oh, okay. I feel better. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this map div, define that variable. And now I don't have to create like a use ref or anything like that. There's no hook for it. You're just going to very simply say that the ref for this is going to get signed to this variable that I declared up here. So I say let map div, I can make it null or whatever it is, doesn't matter. And then just pass it to the ref over here, and the DOM element that gets put on the page from this component is just going to get assigned to that variable. Very simple, very easy, no need to get crazy with that, right? Okay, so now I'm going to be doing everything inside the on mount. So on mount is, looks like a hook, right? So it takes the function and I can start doing stuff in here. So I'm going to go ahead and create my web scene. Let me grab a web scene ID I can start using. So yeah, const web scene will equal to new web scene. And we're going to say portal item with an ID. There we go. Okay, so now I got my scene. Now I need my view. So I'm going to say const view is equal to new scene view. All right, and the scene view is going to take some stuff in here. So I'm going to pass my map, the map is going to be the web scene. The container is going to be my map div here. Or that's a reference to an actual DOM element, so I pass that to the scene view where I want to show it. And then for the pop-up, we're going to play around with the pop-up a bit here. We're going to go ahead and actually, I don't need to mess with the pop-up. Let's just keep this straightforward, simple kind of a view. Now I want to use that view because the way my stuff is set up, it'll complain if I have unused variables, which is to let me know that I should do something, right? So I'll do view.when. And at this point, it says console.log and just say view is ready. There, that cleans up all of the complaints from everything. And let's go and run npm run dev here. And it's going to go and refresh this for us. And there we go. We've got our scene view all lit up. Look at that. And yes, I've got pop-ups and everything working here. Look at that. Oh, that's nice. 3D is so cool sometimes. But yeah, that is it. I mean, that is all you really need to do. So if we come over here and we just look at this particular component, right? Very easily able to go ahead and load it. Some very familiar kind of semantics, right? Semantics, right word? Maybe not. I don't know. So very familiar patterns start coming out of using this, right? So there's like an on mount. There's an on mount in view, right? That I can use, which is nice. I like the fact that I have that to do it. It's a very direct helper utility that does something. When this is mounted, do it. I'm a fan of that, right? be able to just use a class instead of class name. Although if you've got kind of like snippets for JSX, that might jack your stuff up. So you might need to tweak that a bit if that is your thing. Maybe new snippets without that, if you're using snippets at all. And then of course we've got, this is all pretty standard fare. And if we look at the Vite config here, so yes, the template does use Vite by default. It pretty much just has a solid plugin that you bring in, and that is it. It's got some stuff in here for the target for ES Next. And I don't know, this polyfill dynamic import, I gotta look into this. I didn't think I needed this, but maybe it's something I should start adding to my Vite projects. I need to look into that and find out so that it doesn't add any extra polyfills to my build. But yeah, there's a solid plugin for Vite. You can just add it like so, and you're good to go, man. There is like nothing else you got to worry about. So let me go ahead and run this as a build and see what that's going to look like. That build was pretty fast, to be honest with you. So there is a serve here. I'm not sure if I like that one. We'll find out. We'll find out. Okay, so if I run npm run serve. All right, so there we go. 1.3 megabytes of JavaScript, 73 files loaded in here. That's just because the ESM bits. There's a lot of dynamically loaded files in here, because we have some 3D like elevation layer and stuff and loaded. But yeah, 1.3 megabytes for 3D scene. I mean, come on, that's not bad. The runtime for SolidJS is small, very small. It's pretty cool. Like I said, there is a section for doing comparisons of SolidJS against other frameworks. So it talks about that stuff. So you can go ahead and check it out. Ooh, they got a knockout one. Oh, owes its existence to Knockout. I was a huge fan of Knockout back in the day. Knockout was kind of used in a lot of times with .NET MVC stuff. Whatnot, if you ever did any of that kind of work. It was kind of big in that circle. So I used a lot of Knockout way back when. I think I've got blog posts on Knockout still somewhere if you look at my blog. But yeah, this is really cool. Nice. I knew I was a fan of this for a lot of reasons, right? I'm not familiar with SJS, but that's very cool. RxJS, yeah, I like RxJS. Actually, sometimes if I need to just go with like some basic state management stuff, I'll use RxJS observables because they work really well. Lit, I'm a huge fan of Lit. If I'm not using any frameworks at all, I'll just use Lit HTML to handle all of my DOM stuff, which is pretty nice. I like it. Svelte, I don't do a lot of Svelte stuff. I've used it, but I just don't do a lot of it, so I can't really make a solid comparison with Svelte. But I definitely get the whole Vue vibe in here. I'm not sure if I mean, they're talking about how it's some comparisons to there. It doesn't say it's influenced by Vue design-wise, but, comparable in approach. They both use proxies and interactive system. Everyone's using proxies. I mean, they work really well. I haven't checked to see how aggressive proxies in SolidJS are, but I'm sure that they are probably fairly aggressive. I don't know. I can't really talk about that in that regard, but I'll be talking more about SolidJS stuff coming up in the future. I actually have quite a bit of content that I'm outlining and stuff right now, and some things I want to do with regards to SolidJS, so look forward to that. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show this comparison here. Well, not a comparison, but just kind of a quick guide on being able to integrate the ArcGIS API for JavaScript and something like SolidJS, because I know somebody's going to ask. So I thought I would just prepare this for when they do, and I could just send them the video. All right, so yeah, hopefully this is helpful to somebody that might be looking at using SolidJS. And again, this is a very simple example. The architecture of the app and everything, of course, like that can definitely grow and scale, and the API will work just fine as well. And I'll probably have a more in-depth example of that later on down the road of how to do something like that with Solid, because I think it'd be kind of cool to show. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Drop your questions in the comments below. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe as well. Really appreciate it. Be helpful. So thanks a lot. I just want to let you know that I've started a new podcast called The Bounding Box, where I'll be talking about geo development, web development, and everything in between. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and plenty of other places that you can find podcasts. Um, there are a few episodes available now. We are in a bi-weekly schedule, so every other week on Sunday evening or Monday morning, just kind of depending how the day goes. Um, I'll be having guests on talking about various topics, so please tune in, please subscribe, and let me know what you think. Thank you.